The reality is that the sun is setting on the lives of too many people in Canada. Anyone who has followed Cycle for Lyme knows that I myself went 19 years misdiagnosed by our healthcare system. It is no exaggeration that had Stephen O'Neill, a practitioner of traditional Chinese medicine, not identified that my health problems were Lyme and not a product of my imagination, I most likely would not be alive today. I would have died from some type of organ failure that would have never been properly traced back to the real cause, Lyme disease. How can Lyme be identified as a cause of death when Canada doesn't even have proper testing? There are currently thousands of Canadians infected with and slowly dying from Lyme. Their only hope is to seek treatment outside the capabilities of the Canadian healthcare system. The majority end up seeking treatment in the U.S. My experience with the Ontario Ministry of Health and Long-Term Care with regard to Lyme points to nothing short of incompetence. In May of 2010, the Director of Public Health Policy and Programs Branch, an office that works directly under the Chief Medical Officer of Health for Ontario, told me that the reason so little has been done is because we are just finding out about Lyme. Remarks such as this from a director in such a prominent position are not only disturbing, but they are an indication of just how willing the Ministry of Health is prepared to misrepresent what has been known about Lyme disease in Ontario for decades. The truth is that signs were posted at Point Pelee National Park on the north shore of Lake Erie over 25 years ago. Point Pelee is only a 3-hour drive from millions of Ontario residents. In 2011, there is no excuse for any doctor in the province of Ontario to be anything short of an expert with respect to Lyme disease. Moreover, there is no excuse that the province hasn't made the effort to properly ensure that every resident of Ontario has the appropriate information required to protect themselves against tick bites. Although believed to be around for over 100 years, Lyme disease was officially discovered 35 years ago in Lyme, Connecticut in 1976, when the Director of Public Health Policy and Programs Branch tells a member of the public that the problem is that Lyme is a newly discovered disease. I would be of the opinion that this person is either willfully representing the facts and/or is grossly unqualified for the job. In the last 23 years, literally hundreds of articles about Lyme disease have been published in the Toronto Star. In fact, on May 21, 1989, Jim Foster wrote an article published in the Toronto Star that included the following. Canadians have been lucky so far in dodging a sneaky chronic disease that is scaring many Americans away from the great outdoors. Infected ticks were found 2 summers ago in the tall grass of Long Point, a Lake Erie wildlife refuge. The peninsula resembles U.S. areas where the disease has flared. 1 year later, on June 6, 1990, John Power wrote an article published in the Star that proves that well over 2 decades ago, there was a lot of information available regarding the presence of Lyme disease in Ontario. John Power wrote, "If you spend any time in the outdoors, you are well acquainted with biting, boring, blood-sucking, mosquitoes, black flies, and no-see-ums. Undoubtedly, you take appropriate precautions and are familiar with antidotes after the fact. Those lightweights are cream puffs compared to the latest scourge that lurks in wait for the intrepid and careless Southern Ontario outdoorsman. We're referring to deer ticks, source of the debilitating and sometimes fatal Lyme disease. The dreaded ticks are spreading across the U.S. and into Ontario at an alarming rate. Migratory birds are the likely carrier since ticks don't have wings. Not easily spotted, especially by old or weak eyes, adults measure about 1/8 inch and juveniles are no longer than the head of a pin. Beware of them because 90% of the infections are caused by nymphal stage tick bites. Flu-like symptoms often follow the bite and a red bullseye rash commonly appears around the afflicted area. In its early stages, Lyme disease can be successfully treated. However, if undetected or untreated, the victim may suffer headaches, dizziness, depression, stiff neck, neurological problems, cardiac distress, facial paralysis, and severe arthritis. Moreover, the infection may become latent for years before the health begins to deteriorate. As an Ontarian that went misdiagnosed with Lyme for 19 years, I guess my first comment would be, how is it possible that these sort of articles were printed in the country's largest newspaper over 20 years ago, yet the Ministry of Health just seems to have found out about Lyme disease last week? It simply makes no sense. In April of 2011, the same director led me to believe that as part of the Ministry of Health and Long-Term Care Let's Target Lyme campaign, a total of 500,000 brochures were distributed to the 13.4 million residents of Ontario in 2010. That would be one brochure for every 26 Ontarians. However, a few weeks later, I spoke to the person responsible for ordering these brochures and was shocked to find that only 25,000, not 500,000, were ever printed, and that of that, only about 12,500, or half, were delivered to LCBO stores in 2010. This drops the ratio to an abysmal one brochure for every 1,070 Ontarians, only a fraction of what the director had led me to believe. When I questioned why so few, the only explanation I was given was that major budget cutbacks had been made and there was no money for more. To put this into perspective, the Cycle for Lyme brochures that I put out during my 2,000-kilometer ride around Ontario cost less than $35 per thousand. In other words, the wealthiest province in Canada, with a population of 13.4 million residents, only has about $500 a year to promote Lyme disease awareness. What are our lives and the lives of our children worth to our government? I also note that a good percentage of Lyme-infected people actually experience a negative reaction to alcohol. That said, the last place a person with Lyme would be going is the liquor store to notice a brochure. However, when I put this ironic twist to the very person responsible for the Let's Target Lyme campaign, the person obviously had no idea that there was any sort of alcohol sensitivity issue. Yet another blatant example of a ministry that doesn't have a clue what is going on while adults and children needlessly become infected and needlessly become chronically ill because Ontario's doctors are about as informed about Lyme as those who run the Ministry of Health and Long-Term Care. As far as I am concerned, having suffered physical and financial devastation for over 2 decades, it is nothing short of a crime what our government is getting away with. The mitigation of risk is what insurance companies do to prevent their paying customers from getting a fair settlement for the value of an insurance claim. Although it isn't right, the reality is that this happens all the time. However, it is not acceptable that the life and death of Canadians is being mitigated using risk management strategies. Yet with Lyme disease, it happens all the time. Canadians spent $192 billion in 2010 on our health care. The reality is that these issues are not just about Lyme disease. Year after year, it is becoming more and more apparent that chronic illness is on the rise and our healthcare providers do not treat to cure, but merely treat to keep the patient comfortable and keep them coming back for more prescription drugs. There is no money in good health. For me to be able to watch this most beautiful sunset at Sabo Beach on Lake Huron in August of 2011 was nothing short of phenomenal. Sadly, however, the sun has already set for too many Canadians with Lyme disease. How many more of us need to become chronically ill and die from this curable disease before those that run our publicly funded healthcare system wake up and start doing what could clearly have been done over 20 years ago? This is James Christie, Cycle for Lyme. Become aware.